Hello, this is John Michael Chambers. The following is an exclusive special report titled Exposure, the Electromagnetic Human Test, which will premiere on Making Sense of the Madness daily broadcast. The content for this eye-opening report was provided by investigative journalist James Grundvig. There is far more to the global shutdown enacted by the architects of the pandemic than meets the eye. Much of this is now being revealed if you look in the right places. Exposure, the electromagnetic human test? Just what does this mean? Put on your seatbelts, you're about to find out.
The global shutdown, enacted by the architects of the pandemic, required misdirection carried out with the skill of a magician, lured the audience into hypnotic focus on a single object as they rolled out their agenda in veils of concealment. Like the lead up to a grand finale, the masters of illusion hooked the audience's attention with one dazzling move after another. First, with the virus breaking out of China showing people falling dead in the streets and hospitals overrun with bodies. Then, with the worldwide epidemic infecting cruise ships and decimating industries. Next, they imposed fear of the unknown with asymptomatic carriers. At each turn there was a new trick. They sold vaccines made at warp speed as the only solution, the only way to return to normal. They planted more seeds of doubt to keep eyeballs glued on COVID-19 with an endless stream of news bites on wearing masks, social distancing, and the CDC's new twindemic coming this flu season. They weaponized big media, while directing the tech giants to ban, censor, and erase opposing narratives. They controlled the news. They controlled the information. They controlled the people. Take your eye off the magic wand and one can see the coronavirus serving two purposes. First, the architects used it to distract people from discovering the underlying cause of the virus-blamed illnesses. Second, it allowed the rollout of 5G infrastructure on Earth and in the sky. The world had been hoodwinked. Using the shelter-in-place orders as cover, telecom contractors installed 5G equipment and networks in empty schools and offices, while many businesses switched on surveillance spacing and tracking apps, electrifying the environment with non-ionizing radiation. With few eyes on the stealth rollout of 5G in 2020, they erected cell towers camouflaged as trees and cacti, and hidden on lampposts in the suburbs. The architects did all of this and more, neither informing the public about the true nature of their plan nor seeking their consent to being exposed in the greatest biological experiment in human history. The majority of people around the world have little idea they are being doused daily with non-ionizing radiation from space, where they live, and where they travel. Add Wi-Fi, laptops, smartphones and new tracing and spacing apps, and the exposure to millimeter waves have grown exponentially. Soon 5G wireless technology will be everywhere. An omnipresent eye. The end goal of what the World Economic Forum's Klaus Schwab wrote in the Fourth Industrial Revolution report in 2016, aims to transition societies to run on data while being controlled by AI and automation. The on-ramp of smart vehicles, smart homes, smart buildings, smart factories, and smart cities will one day connect consumers, businesses, and industries in the 6G web of Nikola Tesla's digital ether. Selling the promise of magnitudes of efficiency gains and superfast download speeds, what's rarely discussed are the darker elements of the cashless society or the 24/7 surveillance state. Convenience traded in for absolute control. But what is not talked about are the health impacts of living and working in the hot environment. Test case, Wuhan, China. The industrial hub of 11 million people became the first 5G city in Asia. On the same October 18, 2019 day as the Gates Foundation-sponsored Event 201 simulated a coronavirus pandemic killing 65 million people, Wuhan hosted the World Military Games. During the two-week expo, Wuhan turned on 20% of its 10,000 base stations that all went live by year-end. Was it a coincidence that the COVID-19 outbreak occurred in the world's first 5G hotspot city? Or that many of its citizens dropped dead in the street, their brains starved of oxygen, an ailment known as hypoxia or acute mountain sickness? The next outbreak occurred on board the Diamond Princess cruise ship in February. With one person out of 3,700 people on the ship infected with coronavirus when it docked in Japan for quarantine, the shelter-in-cabin order backfired. In 2 weeks, COVID-19 spread like wildfire, infecting 712 people on board, almost 1/5 the total headcount. How did that happen? The World Health experts could only venture a guess. Food? HVAC duct systems? What was left out of the probe of the Diamond Princess, however, and 3 of its sister ships, Princess's Cruises was the first cruise line to become a wireless hotspot. Late last year, the 4 ships installed Medallion Net, a dual satellite system using near-Earth orbit and geosynchronous satellites to beam Wi-Fi down to the vessels crossing the vast open space of oceans. The Grand Princess, which docked in Oakland, California, avoided a similar fate. In that case, authorities disembarked the passengers and sent them to quarantine at a nearby military base. The Ruby Princess, which quarantined in Australia, triggered a homicide investigation when 11 of its 250 unwell passengers died in less than a week. The next epicenter in the global pandemic shifted to northern Italy. It, too, like Wuhan, became Europe's first 5G hot zone. Soon, the corona plague killed off the elderly and the weak, with stay-at-home orders and shutting down businesses doing more harm than having any measurable effect of containing the epidemic. In each instance, like New York and Seattle that followed, COVID-19 spread unevenly, flaring up in nursing homes that likely deployed 5G wireless systems for patient monitoring and telehealth. The question becomes, why has the world been dealing with a coronavirus outbreak that never behaved like its predecessors before, dating back to the 1960s? And are the long list of unusual ailments, many related to oxygen deprivation, the result of the common cold virus? Or is it something else? Something less quantifiable, such as the next permutation of blanketing the world with SpaceX's new 5G Starlink system? Under new scrutiny, the coronavirus cover story begins to break apart like the RNA fragments the PCR tests identify as positive cases. Could the faulty tests be a tool of deception? Do they also pick up the breakages in human cells, known as exosomes, due to amplification of the new wireless systems, as well as the coronavirus? It would explain why predominantly the elderly and people with comorbidities didn't survive the onslaught of the next plateau of irradiating the planet. One last anomaly sticks out of the magician's act. Scientists found coronavirus strains in the sewer systems of Seattle and northern Italy. Last December. That's months before the outbreak started in either region. Did the architects of the pandemic preload coronavirus into last season's flu vaccines in China, Europe, and the United States, as some medical doctors suspect? If so, the corona cover story, being natural in origin, takes on a lot of water. What people need to do is watch the schools in the West that reopen this fall to see if new COVID-19 clusters emerge with the children, teens, and staff. New wireless systems installed in those facilities would be another piece of circumstantial evidence that the coronavirus pandemic is in fact a cover story for the deleterious harm caused by switching on 5G satellites and hotspots around the world.
The deep state and shadow government will stop at nothing. We are at a crossroads for humanity. We have an awesome responsibility to expose the lies and crimes and to reveal the truth. Freedom? It's up to us. This is John Michael Chambers. Thank you for viewing this special report. Be sure to share it far and wide.
I joined the Royal Navy in 1960, and I studied microwaves, and I learned all aspects of microwave warfare.
Microwave warfare.
Their dangers, their uses, the dangers to the human body. So, and I had a thorough background in microwaves. Microwaves at that time were, as they are today, used as weapons. It is a perfect weapon.
It is a perfect weapon.
Because you can't feel it. And for a government, if you can microwave people you don't like, you can give them cancer or brain damage, and you've effectively put them out of action, and you can't be prosecuted for it because they don't know you're doing it.
You talk about microwaves used as weapons. Is it the same microwaves that are used in modern communications technologies?
Exactly the same. Nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is the colour of the box that they come out of.
So if you look into the science about this, what kind of symptoms could wireless technologies cause?
You will feel very tired, you will feel lethargic, you will feel depressed, which is usually the first symptom. You won't want to get up in the morning, you won't want to be happy. You will have more colds, more coughs, longer coughs, because your immune system cannot cope. That is followed usually by some form of neurological damage. You will feel suicidal. Suicide is a very common side effect. You will feel life isn't worth living, and then that has a knock-on effect in the rest of the body. So basically, in terms of the brain, you get incredibly depressed, and in terms of the body, your immune system is suppressed. And of course, then you're open to all infections, and it's a very miserable existence.
These health damages you are talking about here, how much science supports that?
Oh, there are. When I went to Canada, I had documentation of 2,500 military papers. And these are military papers done by the country's best scientists in the best highly paid laboratories, highly equipped laboratories. And I had 2,500 of them. Many, many years of study. And they all say this, that they can affect the eyes, the heart, the brain, and they can induce cancer. And when I got to Canada, the professor at Trent University, she had another, and she showed them to me, another 6,000 documents that I didn't have. So there are at least 8,500 military documents with this. We also have now the peer-reviewed epidemiological studies, 14 of them to my knowledge, that all show low-level radiation causes cancer and neurological diseases, illnesses.
What do you think about wireless technologies used in schools and kindergartens and children using cell phones?
It is incredibly dangerous, incredibly stupid, and I think the people who authorise it should be locked away for the rest of their lives because they shouldn't be walking around the planet. And the reason is, if you are a young girl or a young teacher, the microwaves are affecting the eggs, or the immature eggs, the follicles, in your ovaries, 400,000 of them. The radiation is 10 times more dangerous to this DNA than any other DNA in the body. And nobody knows why, it just is. So your eggs are already irradiated and could produce a genetically damaged child if you have one. The biggest danger comes when you become pregnant, because your fetus has your damage if it is damaged by it. But in the fetus, for the first 100 days, it is forming, if it's a girl, its own immature eggs, because they're born with all of them, unlike boys who make sperms. They're born with all of their eggs. So what you are now doing is you are having a fetus inside you, and the eggs as they are forming have no protection, absolutely no cellular protection. They haven't developed it. So you are now irradiating what would be your grandchild. And because the baby in your fetus would be your child, and the eggs inside the fetus will be when this child grows up and has her child. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So it is your grandchild, and this is where the biggest danger is. It is in the grandchildren, which won't be born for another 30 to 40 years. That is where the big problem. And this has already been shown with animals who reproduce every few years. We already know this is going to happen. So the people putting Wi-Fi in schools today, I think they should be sent to jail. I really do. Because they are going to cause this, and we don't know how many people it's going to affect, but we do know it's going to affect quite a few. They are going to affect the children to be born in 30 years' time, 30, 40 years' time. There has also been an experiment that shows microwaves affect it's called the P300 complex of the brain. In other words, and there are a couple of papers on this, a child will have delayed thinking. So if a child is sitting an exam, they won't be able to think of the answer straight away. It's delayed. And they'll almost, like a little bit like dyslexia, they won't be able to think of an answer straight away, or if there's an emergency in their life, there's just a slight delay. And it could affect their examinations, it could affect the whole of their lives. And this has also been shown.
What would your message be to parents and to schools and to kindergartens concerning wireless technologies?
Get rid of them. Get rid of them straight away. There is a solution. A solution is just to use a piece of wire about that long and use a fibre optic cable or a telephone line. And the problem is solved.
More reaction today to the recent report that claimed a microwave weapon may have been used to attack American diplomats in Cuba. Local 10's Hatzel Vela reports exclusively from Havana.
It's a new report that says the State Department took more than 6 months to create a panel that would assess what happened here with U.S. Embassy workers. The Government Accountability Office report says the unit at the State Department responsible for setting up a special panel first learned of the incidents through media reports in August of 2017. That's 8 months after the medical staff at the U.S. Embassy here in Havana started checking workers who first reported issues. This is just one of the topics surely to come up in Thursday's congressional hearing, where State Department officials are expected to testify on several Cuban issues. Congresswoman Eliana Ross-Lehtinen says the truth about these incidents will come to light, and the United States stands ready to hold accountable those responsible for attacking our citizens. Days ago, the New York Times published an article where a doctor who authored a medical report says microwaves could be the cause of the injuries.
Microwaves at that time were, as they are today, used as weapons. It is a perfect weapon.
It is a perfect
As of today, 26 American embassy staffers in Cuba, 1 diplomat in China now are confirmed to have suffered what the U.S. government calls health attacks. Now a mother is speaking out for the very first time in this NBC News exclusive.
Last year, Catherine Werner, a U.S. diplomat stationed in China, told her parents she was experiencing strange sounds and sensations in her apartment. Her health was declining rapidly.
Just struggling, and she's just a shell of what she was.
Her mother, Laura Hughes, an Air Force veteran, was so alarmed, she quickly booked a flight to China.
You notice when something's wrong with your children, and there was something very wrong with Catherine.
Laura tried replacing the apartment's air filters and buying imported food. Nothing helped. And then Laura says she started feeling it too.
We heard a very high-pitched sound in Catherine's bedroom, and we heard a very low pulsing sound in the living room. Our heads would pulse. You would feel like you would want to regurgitate. You could become instantly paralyzed, instantaneously fatigued.
Laura has also developed visual problems, including sensitivity to light, which is why she's wearing dark glasses today. It's similar to what U.S. diplomats in Cuba reported feeling, in what the U.S. government now says were targeted health attacks. As mother and daughter struggled, Laura says their dogs also began acting strangely.
They'd be shivering under the bed when we returned to the apartment. They would vomit blood. They didn't want to go back into the apartment after long walks. And they would run down the hallway and stop just where the living room begins and just sit there, and their heads would move simultaneously. We were so scared. We didn't know what could they possibly be looking at.
After 3 months, Laura, unable to tolerate it any longer, headed back to the U.S. 3 weeks later, the State Department medevaced Catherine out of China.
The doctors diagnosed Catherine with traumatic brain injury. Their findings were the same as they found for the U.S. diplomats from Cuba.
Attorney Mark Zaid represents Catherine and many of the Havana diplomats affected.
There are things that are identified in their MRIs and CAT scans as showing traumatic brain injury that shouldn't be there for people who have never had concussions.
The State Department brought in outside experts. Their findings? The victims appear to suffer from a new type of brain network disorder.
Because you can't feel it. And for a government, if you can microwave people you don't like, you can give them cancer or brain damage.
From a new type of brain network disorder.
And you've effectively put them out of action.
Who or what caused it? A mystery.
The United States government is still not sure who or what is responsible for those health attacks,
leaving Laura Hughes and so many others in the dark.
I, too, have been diagnosed by the same doctors through the VA hospital in Philadelphia with traumatic brain injury.
In total, 16 Americans posted in China were evacuated after reporting sounds or symptoms. But other than Catherine, the U.S. says none of them are considered confirmed cases.
Some people have suggested that maybe it's all psychosomatic, mass hysteria.
Science doesn't lie. These scientists and these doctors and specialists have been working very hard and long on us. There is no way you can fake this.
Have they told you or Catherine whether this is permanent damage?
Yes, it looks like it.
The NIH is now studying the syndrome, but Laura is calling on the State Department to do more.
I do not believe that our military or diplomats are safe because this weapon system is creating havoc.
And you can't be prosecuted for it because they don't know you're doing it. Because they don't know you're doing it.
And do you worry that this could happen to other diplomats in other countries?
That's why I'm here. That is why I'm here.
And Hughes is speaking out, she says, because her daughter and the other diplomats cannot without fear of losing their jobs. Many told NBC they fear the government is downplaying what happened, downplaying what happened.
And I learned all aspects of microwave warfare, their dangers, their uses, the dangers to the human body. So, and I had a thorough background in microwaves. Microwaves at that time were, as they are today, used as weapons. It is a perfect weapon.
It is a perfect weapon.
Because you can't feel it. And for a government, if you can microwave people you don't like, you can give them cancer or brain damage, and you've effectively put them out of action, and you can't be prosecuted for it because they don't know you're doing it.